dang it, he knew my type. Oh wait, I should check how that YouTube video is doing, shouldn't I? Oh. Hey, you know about Kris, right? Alright, second verse, same as the first. I gathered my friends together, and I taught them some more Deltarune lore. We're talking about just Kris this time. Just like last time, if I struggle to clarify anything, I will add additional on-screen notation to assist my vocal notation? My voiceover. I'll admit, I do get a little more rambly and unfocused in this one. I kind of made it under a bit of a time crunch. So if there's anything that I am not clear enough on, or that I got incorrect, please do yell at me in the comments, just like last time. But I will admit, I'm pretty proud of the general thesis of this one, so stick around, because I think I solved Weird Route. Oh, explosion! Wow, yeah! Like, comment, subscribe if you like what you see here, and yeah, let's talk about that thing. Oh, wait a minute, I said I'd evolve at 200 subs, right? Ow.
Proceed.
Wait, what did you say?
Niche reference for those who haven't played Delting Runes.
This is actually a reference to the proceed route of Deltarune, where you proceed. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
You just proceed.
You just proceed. Nothing else happens. You just click proceed, and then nothing happens. No, low-key,
Yep,
that's actually that's just chapter 5 Weird Route, actually.
Are you recording?
Maybe.
Tee.
I'll never tell.
The Runology 2.
We're
doing
here.
it again.
We're back. Oh my god. Hello.
Are you not going to explain who is joining us now?
We'll get to that. There's a process to these things.
Dickhead.
Fuck you. Alright, everyone, welcome back to Under Runology, the, I guess, series now, where I, a self-proclaimed Deltarune lore expert, walk my friends, who are a bit newer to Undertale and Deltarune, through
I'm not that new.
Through Undertale and Deltarune lore. This is, of course, inspired by Mr. Brick & Co. I said this last time. If you like what you see here, they do the same thing, but just better and in person. Definitely check them out. I guess this time I'll introduce who's here. Like last time, we had Paul, but we also have a new guest here today. Weebs, would you like to introduce yourself? Say a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I mean, I like Undertale and Deltarune, and I just want to see what this presentation thing was about, because I overslept the first one.
Yeah, you slept through the
That's
first
true.
one like it should. This is Weebs, he likes Persona and JoJo and nothing else.
That's not true. You didn't even talk about SMT. I like SMT way more than I like Persona.
Same thing. Same fucking thing.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's
not
just worse Persona, honestly. So last time,
Oh my god.
we set a like goal in the video to make this video the Kris video, and this time our like goal is already met. This video's like goal is going to be the friend video, which I kind of jokingly put into the last one, but the support on the last video was absolutely insane. You guys absolutely blew me away. I got like 10k views in a day. I'm absolutely floored. I read through every single comment.
Even the dog shit ones.
Even the dog shit ones, like the comment that you left, you, the viewer, you watching this right now.
You cool skeleton 998 or whatever.
Yes, it was very, 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 very heartwarming. The amount of support. I love it, I love it, I love it. Even the people who were correcting me on the few things, the many things that I got wrong, were still very nice about it. So I thank everyone for your support, and even though there is no like goal on this video, of course, if you enjoy, please do like, comment, subscribe. Motivation means the world to me. I would love to keep doing this, so long as people keep wanting it. Speaking of those few things that I got wrong, let us talk about those real quick. So yes.
I am Susie Deltarune. I am healing fountains. Oh.
So yes, there were a few things I got wrong that were pointed out to me that I want to take some time to amend. First of all, I completely butchered the timeline of Flabby's creation. I got the general, like, main points of it correct. Asriel going to the surface with Kara's body after Kara took their own life, going to Kara's village, getting attacked by humans, coming back. I just got some of the minor details wrong there that kind of affect everything. So, Asriel returned to the underground not through the hole that Frisk fell through, but through where he left, through the barrier in New Home. I don't know why I thought he came back through the hole at the top of Mount Ebit. I think, like, a decade ago, I saw some fan art of, like, a wounded, bloody Asriel gently descending back into the ruins to a crying Toriel or something, and I was just like, yep, that's canon, that's real, that actually happened. This is actually, like, a real photograph from that scene.
Real photograph like it happened, like it's a historical event.
Yeah, Toby Fox put a camera through the screen and click, that's the camera sound. Asriel returned through the barrier in New Home and not through the mountain. He died in Asgore's garden in New Home, and the golden flowers didn't start to grow until after he had gotten back. Alphys could not have gotten a flower from the ruins because the ruins were closed off. I really should have realized that while I was writing that out, but that just never clicked for some reason. I do apologize for that, but everything else should be correct. I got like 100 fucking comments about the punch card. Okay, I get it, guys. I get it. I'm illiterate. I get it. The punch card, I mistakenly said that Weird Route was going to probably be the canon route, because in Weird Route, Susie always draws 3 people on the punch card, whereas in normal route, she can draw 4 people. I conflated the Weird Route and normal route dialogue. On normal route, Sans tells Susie, draw your friends so I can remember you. She will always draw 3 people. She will draw Noelle, Kris, and Ralsei. And I think if Ralsei doesn't, like if you don't get that dialogue in chapter 3, then she'll draw herself instead of Ralsei. But the point is, she always draws 3 people on normal route. On Weird Route, Sans says draw you and your friends. So she draws herself, Ralsei, and Kris. My bad! Dude, every day I've gotten like 7 comments about, you got that wrong! I know, I get it, I'm sorry, guys.
And did you know you got the punch card wrong?
You know what, maybe we are gonna kill you actually. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, because we smashed the like goals last time, guys, we killed Swole between episodes! That's why he's not here, he's dead!
10k likes and we resurrect Swole via necromancy.
2k likes and we kill Weebs!
They don't even know me yet.
They will cast judgment throughout the video. Another thing that a few people pointed out was that I said that the red soul was linked with determination. It is never actually linked with determination in game, like directly. Every other soul color is associated with their trait because of the ball game here. Trait is listed out and as the same color as the soul. Determination throughout the entire game is never associated with the color red in this way. Determination is instead associated with the colors yellow and gold, which I just don't really agree with this whole notion that red is not determination, because Frisk's whole deal, Red Soul Frisk over here, is that they were determined enough to do exactly what Flowey did, going through timelines again and again and again, seeing a whole bunch of different endings, doing genocide route, doing everything. Flowey, whose only shtick is that he has determination flowing through his plant veins and lacks an actual soul. The only trait this flower has in general is determination, and he does the same thing that Frisk does. I think that it's just one of those things that's not explicitly stated, but still very heavily implied, that red is determination. I did see someone say that red could be associated with love and still have that double meaning of level of violence and actual love, as seen on both routes, but I mean that's an interesting interpretation, but I don't follow that one. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that red is determination. And also the Birdly phone number, I wonder what happened if you called it. It's actually randomized every time you enter the page. So unfortunately there is no canon Birdly phone number. And additionally, the area code 555 is apparently reserved for fictional phone numbers, which I didn't know that. Oops, we can't booty call Birdly. And
I'm like the number 2 Birdly fan. What the fuck, bro?
So yeah, that's pretty much every big sticking point in the comments. Everything worth talking about anyways. So let's talk about Kris. Kris Cross Applesauce, Kris Topher Dreemurr, Merry Christmas, whatever you want to call them, our protagonist here.
Kris get the banana.
The one who gets the banana. That's why they're yellow. I think Kris is hands down the most interesting protagonist in any RPG because they're so subtly characterized, and yet, like, I feel like no one looks at certain parts of Kris. I really feel like they're done a disservice by the community, despite how much love they are given. And I want to look at a few sides of Kris that people so often give the time of day to. Not out of illiteracy or not caring, but just because we've had this one view of Kris since the beginning, and we've kind of struggled to really turn that perspective. I think ultimately Kris comes down to one core conflict. Their own personal desires and the duty that they are bound to. Which everyone knows that, but again, I want to kind of put a finer tooth comb through that and really tear it to pieces. Let's get started talking about Kris. First of all,
oh, transition. Oh.
shout outs to the Deltarune wiki. So, here's how we're going to go through this. We're going to talk about Kris's past, the kind of person that they used to be, who we are told about from the various citizens of Hometown and their classmates, their friends, all that jazz. We're going to go through their relationships. We're going to see how their interactions with other people inform the person that they are today now that we're in the picture. We're going to see how Kris is characterized and changed throughout the different routes of the game, and how that all ties back to Kris's central desires and their own mental states. Overall, we're just trying to answer the question, who the hell is Kris Deltarune? That's their real last name, not Dreemurr.
Wait, so
it's amazing.
the name is like Kris Deltarune, Susie Gaster.
Yeah.
What's
my
Ralsei's
full
last
name? It's Susie Gaster.
My full name? It's
What's
Kris
Ralsei's
Gaster
last name?
Dreemurr. Oh, also Gaster. They're all Gasters.
Oh, they're all dings. I get it.
They're all dings. So let's start talking about Kris before we came into the picture. We know that Kris is the adopted sibling of Asriel and the only human child of the Dreemurr family, as well as the only human in all of Hometown. They're very close to Asriel. Even though the Dreemurr family has kind of fallen apart, that's still their bro. We know that they were close friends with the Holiday family, and on good terms with all of Hometown, honestly, but it's never exactly made clear if Hometown liked them, or the fact that they were associated with their much more successful, cooler, and well-liked brother. We know that they're a prankster, that they were mischievous, and that's something that's still carried through to this day, with many characters citing their more modern pranks. And we also know that they targeted Noelle quite a bit, as seen in Spamton sweepstakes pages and a few cutscenes in-game as well. They took the ICE pizza box after Noelle was scared of it, after seeing it in the dark. They fucking chased her around with it, and then Des beat the shit out of them and burnt out the eyes. We know that they shook the Ferris wheel when they rode it at the festival. We know that Kris would hide under her bed and jump out at her, and this is like a source of nostalgia for her. We know that Kris used to be very expressive and outgoing with their creativity. They would play piano in the church. They would play piano in the hospital. They would go to church. They were out with Asriel all the time. They would go to QC's diner. Just overall, much more outgoing than they are today. However, there were limits to this outgoingness, as seen in the Kris Dreemurr Kris page on Spamton sweepstakes, which we did look at last time. I didn't put it in the video, but that is the page where Noelle recounts that Kris would always come over to her house. They'd be having fun together, and then Kris would suddenly get up, go into the kitchen, and start playing the piano. Whenever she walked in, Kris would stop. It's clear that Kris's passions are very important to them. Kris's creative expression is important to them, but they're still kind of shy about it. Their outgoingness was tied to being with Asriel, and now that Asriel is out of the picture, they're much more closed off. We know that they shared an interest in the occult with Caddy. They would practice demon summoning and do rituals and shit. We also know that they wanted to learn magic in general, which is a bit strange, and it's kind of a blink and you miss a detail. In chapter 2, when you're in Queen's Mansion and you're in the prison cell, it's pretty luxurious for prison, but one of Kris's search results is how to use magic. And we know that the internet's been down in Hometown for some time now, so they must have searched this a while ago. Why? Why would they even know about magic being like a thing? You could say this is just like a kid, like, oh, a kid wants to learn magic tricks. They get their little magician's kit. Fucking Kris Angel.
Kris Angel!
Oh, Kris Angel! Holy shit! Kris is the angel! Wait a minute. Say that again. You could say this is just Kris wanting to learn some basic sleight of hand magic, but I think it's a bit deeper than that. If you check Kris's act command in every chapter, it has a new description describing it as explicitly not being magic. I think it's very obvious that Kris is self-conscious about the fact that they can't do magic on their own, which is a weird thing to be self-conscious about considering that magic isn't a thing in the light world. Monsters don't do magic. So what's up with that? We know that Kris also slept a lot back in the day. They're known as like the class zombie who sleeps all class. Alphys talks about them sleeping through class pretty frequently. And we also know that they just didn't really fit in. They wanted to be a monster. They wanted to be like their family and like the people that lived around them, but they just couldn't because obviously they're a human. We know that they asked Toriel when their horns were gonna grow in, and she was like, ooh, about that. So they got Kris that little red horn headband, which people theorize is Ralsei, but I don't know what the fuck Ralsei is. So already, even as a youngin', there's already this theme of isolation, of separation, and being different from those around you. But thankfully, they did have one person who accepted them no matter what. Asriel, their big brother, who they love and look up to very much. We know that they would often do things together. They would make music together. They made games together in Kris and Asriel's room. If you check Asriel's computer, every chapter is a new thing from a game that they were working on. So it's very clear that they were doing stuff together. They were ambitious, and Kris really, really misses him. Kris's life is just not the same without him around, to the point where they would just sit there Googling summer vacation college when, just hoping that it would be right around the corner. But of course it's not. Nowadays, Kris is always in Asriel's shadow. It feels like no one can mention Kris without mentioning Asriel. No one can mention Asriel without mentioning Kris being inferior to him. And it doesn't ever seem to be done maliciously, but it's just one of those things that subconsciously everyone in Hometown just seems to do. There's only one person that really sees Kris as themselves these days, and we'll get to her. Another very interesting thing about Kris's relationship with Asriel is they vehemently insist that him and Ralsei are very different in appearance and personality, just in general. I imagine it's very weird for Kris to be thrust into this magical destiny and have your companion be this uncanny skinwalker clone of your brother. They try as hard as possible to separate them mentally, which we'll get back to when we get to Ralsei.
Talk about pieces of Asriel's dust.
We already talked about piles of Asriel's dust last time.
Let's do it again.
No! If you show Susie the picture on the fridge, she'll react like, oh my god, why do you have a picture of Ralsei here? And Kris will begin to intricately point out every difference between Ralsei and Asriel. I just think it's very cute how they're kind of, not really protective, but very defensive of this image of Asriel in their minds. I say it's cute, but it's also kind of fucked up, because again, uncanny skinwalker clone of your brother, who you're forced to be friends with and save the world with, that's a little weird. But on top of that, they want us to know as little as possible about Asriel. If you look in the door in Queen's Mansion labeled Asriel's room, Kris will close their eyes as they peek in, so that we can't see anything. If you try to open up Asriel's drawer in Chapter 5 and read his love letters to Des, Kris will not read them. They will instantly shut the drawer. Nope, can't open it again. Don't look at that. Nope, you're not allowed, not allowed. When it comes to Asriel, they go extremely out of their way to make sure we don't get a single bit of information, which is interesting to me. But I think it's also just, that's their favorite person. They don't want us to know about their favorite person. We cannot taint their image of Asriel.
I don't give a fuck about your autism. I'm gonna find out about his secret love affair with the deer lady, and then I'm gonna kill him.
Oh no, I don't want to kill him. He's awesome.
I want to be evil. I want to be evil and mean.
But with Asriel out of the way, let's talk about big Asriels. And by big Asriels, I mean not Asriels. Let's talk about the Dreemurr parents, Toriel and Asgore, starting with Toriel, who...
Let's talk about divorce.
Let's talk about divorce. Toriel is, of course, the only parents left in the Dreemurr household since they have divorced, and she has no business raising a human. She really, really relied on Asriel to keep Kris in check, and without him in the picture, she is completely lost. Whenever her and Kris are talking, she always has to mention Asriel. She always has to mention, remember when you were younger? Remember when your brother was here? Remember when you two were happy together? And it seems like she knows something is up with Kris these days, but just genuinely can't help them. She doesn't know how. She doesn't have it in her. We know when Kris was younger, she repeatedly took out the book on how to care for humans in the library. So she is trying very hard, but at a certain point, it seems like she just kind of threw in the towel. She obviously hasn't outright given up on Kris, but she's very clearly not making an effort anymore, even to the point where she just wants to get up to Asriel's college now, and okay, yeah, here you go. Here's your brother. Here's your brother. Are you happy now? Are you happy now? But even if Asriel does come to visit for summer vacation, that's not going to be a permanent solution. Kris would be happy for a week or two, and then you're going to be back in the driver's seat. I also think it's really interesting to look back at Toriel's characterization in Undertale, because it's said by, I think, one of the random froggets you can encounter, that some of the humans that fell underground stayed with Toriel for a long time, and some of them stayed for a very short amount of time. So I'm wondering how good her parenting was in Undertale, because we don't get to hear a lot about how she took care of Kara, but obviously Asriel loved her very much. But I want to know how she interacted with the humans back then. I want to know more about that. On the other side of the Dreemurr divorce equation, we have Asgore, who was a bit better than Toriel. You know, it's implied that Kris was a lot closer with Asgore than Toriel. That Asgore actually...
Living in my car right after...
Unfortunately, Asgore never did run over Kris with the car. It is implied that Asgore actually did things with Kris and Asriel. Whenever Toriel is talking about Kris and Asriel, she's describing something that the two of them did together. Them having fun, oh, you guys would have fun at the festival, you guys would play games together at the festival, you guys would do this, you guys would do that. But when it comes to Asgore, we hear more stories where he's involved. Him watching the cowboy show with Asriel and Kris. Him, I think that there's another NPC that says that he would play catch with them frequently. He seems a lot more involved in their lives directly than Toriel was. He misses Asriel too, of course, but he also misses Kris. Anytime he mentions Asriel, he mentions Kris as well. Oh, when Asriel comes back from college, I'd love to see you two together, even without Toriel. When Asriel comes back, I'll make a snack tray and serve it to you two. He sees them both equally, he loves them both equally. But unfortunately, of course, the most divorced man on the planet has fallen from grace. Kris does not visit Asgore in his shop. When you go in there in chapter 1, he seems surprised and excited to see Kris. It's been a while. He doesn't see them like ever. They don't visit. And why don't they visit? Well, if you look a little deeper, Asgore might not have been the perfect parent that I'm painting him out to be. We know he has a very short temper based on his interactions with the flowers in chapter 5. He gets so absorbed in doing one thing that'll push everything else away. Whatever happened with Des, no one blamed him for it. He says this himself in chapter 5, but he became so absorbed with it that he began to neglect his family. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he was the cause of a lot of the fights in the Dreemurr household. Just knowing how angry he gets, knowing how insistent he was on this case, he definitely made that house very unpleasant. Kris very clearly does not like how far Asgore has sunk. They don't visit Asgore very often. They don't come, and they don't like looking around at the end of chapter 5. If you try to inspect things around the back room of Flower King after sealing the fountain, Kris will go, oh, it's too dark. Or sorry, the text box will go, oh, it's too dark. When obviously it's not too dark. We can see things very clearly in there. Another little detail is that Kris does not like Asgore's conspiracy thing. Now, whether that's because they don't like to see their father tearing himself apart, or because they don't want Asgore catching on to whatever it is they're doing in the Dark World, that's up in the air. When we got the mics in chapter 4, and we got the Batat conspiracy board, we had this dialogue here where it says that Kris doesn't like looking at this sort of thing. People were like, oh, it's just a jab at, how overcomplicated some theories can get. But some people were like, oh no, that's because Kris does not like looking at Asgore's conspiracy board. And as of chapter 5, I think we have a more direct link there, where again, after you seal the fountain, if you look at the pile of papers in the corner of Flower King, it'll say like, oh, these are Asgore's documents, but you don't want to look closely at these. You never liked looking closely at these. So it's pretty clear that Kris does not approve of Asgore's current predicament. And that's fair. I mean, he's a fat chud.
He's like the LeBron James of being a chud.
He's the LeBron James of bums, bro. Divorced in all universes, awesome. Child murderer, suicidal, bro, just lock in. But of course, there's one more member of the Dreemurr family we have to talk about. And no, it's not Togor this time.
Togor!
Tenna. Tenna paints a pretty interesting picture as well, because his relationship with Kris is kind of dual-sided animosity. Tenna loves Kris, but also Tenna is afraid of Kris. Tenna is terrified of Kris. If you go to Tenna alone, he's shaking. He's like, oh, where are your friends? You're all alone? Why? Tenna obviously doesn't think that Kris likes him, and yeah, Kris doesn't. And why does Kris not like Tenna? I think it's pretty obvious. Tenna is the living embodiment of everything that has gone wrong. Everything that they can no longer have. That very TV that everyone used to gather together happily to watch the holiday specials is now alive and nostalgia baiting Kris, and they're not happy about it. Every 5 seconds it's, oh Kris, you used to love watching cooking shows with your mom. Oh, you and your brother would be joking around. Remember that cowboy show you'd watch?
Real life. I remember your genocides. It's really funny.
Kris, I remember your families. Oh, remember Des.
Family.
Remember December? Remember her? So yeah, I don't think Kris is very happy with this guy.
I'd chop his arms off too if I kept on getting baited like that, I won't lie.
I would never chop his arms off because I love him. Every time Tenna tries to appeal to Kris's nostalgia, it is met with silence. Kris does not fuck with anything that Tenna is trying to do, and all Tenna can do is just keep doing it. I also think it's really interesting that Tenna is upset that Asriel has left for college. Now you could say it's because, oh, one of my original viewers is gone. But again, remember, this is a Dark World that Kris made. Everything in TV World should reflect Kris's mentality. I think this hints at Kris, what Kris thinks of Asriel going to college. That Kris is just confused. Why the fuck would Asriel leave me? Why? I don't like that Asriel left me. I want Asriel back. Which, again, we already know that they that they do want Asriel back based on them Googling, when does college go on summer vacation? I also think it's really interesting that TV World is, well, TV World. It's a giant show. Everyone's an actor there. Everyone's paid to be there. No one actually wants to be there. I picture this as Kris kind of reflecting on their own childhood, their own family, their own friendships, and saying that none of it is actually real. That they don't truthfully believe that anyone wants to be around them. That everyone's just there because they kind of have to be. And it could be supported by the fact that everyone likes their brother more than them. It could be supported by the fact that the Dreemurr family has broken apart, that their mother is neglectful, that their father seems to be a little ignorant, or just unaware of certain things. Everyone's just acting. Nothing is real, everything is pretend. And on the topic of Kris Dark Worlds, I want to talk about Card Kingdom and Flower Kingdom, because there's a lot of similarities here that are very, very interesting. First of all, we're operating under the belief here that both worlds are made by Kris. The presence of evil-ass fake Gerson supports this. When Susie made the second sanctuary, she wanted to go back to the Dark Sanctuary. She wanted to see Gerson again. But because she was different, because her will is different, the entire Dark World was different. It had similarities, sure, but everything was twisted, inverted, and overall incorrect, which eventually led to the statue of Gerson moving instead of Gerson himself actually coming back. The chapters 1 and 5 Dark Worlds have way too many specific similarities to be that sort of deal. It couldn't just be that Kris wanted to go back to a few days ago when everything was simpler, when Susie was just happy, when we didn't have these weights hanging over our head from the final prophecy. It has to be that Kris made both fountains. I don't see any other explanation for them being so goddamn similar. And it's not just the fact that they look similar. We can dig a little deeper and see that there are themes of abandonment in both Dark Worlds. King, his whole deal is that he's pissed that the Lightners abandoned him, and Flowery's whole deal is that he's trying to replace Kris. All Asgore needs is a human, a better human. Now, of course, we know with Flowery there was a bit more going on there. He wanted to just test the Fun Gang's strength of will and see—
He wanted to fuck Asgore, bro.
And he wanted to fuck Asgore. But he also was just trying to test the Fun Gang and see how determined they were. Ooh, buzzword.
Not Jabona.
It's your boner! But there's also clearly a bit of projection from Kris in there, because again, remember, Kris made Flower Kingdom. The fountains reflect the will of their creators. Card Kingdom was their first big, fun, grand adventure where they all got together, they were all friends. And now that it feels like Susie is kind of changing for the worse, Ralsei is in distress, and Kris is kind of at a crossroads here, they want that one more fun adventure as well. Card Kingdom is also full of a bunch of shitty-ass Darkners who don't do things unless they're being promised something in return. The Rudens are the biggest example of this, you know, praising the guy who pays us, and very easily switching sides when lectured for 3 seconds. But also, look at their relationship with Lancer. No one in Card Kingdom fucks with Lancer. They all just hang out with Lancer because, well, that's the king's son. We kind of have to. Doesn't that sound familiar? Liking someone because they're associated with someone else? And when we look at the flowers, and honestly, all the Darkners in Flower Kingdom, they all just don't think that they're good enough, that they're one bad day away from being replaced, that they need to prove their worth. It's not just the colored flowers. We have the Darkner She, the Scarecrow, who is trying their damnedest to be a roadblock, but just can't be a roadblock. They can't be what they think that they need to be. The Sheeries, the Scissors, are perfectionists. They need everything to be exactly how it's supposed to be, as good as it can possibly be. It is a trend that intertwines with multiple Darkners. Even fucking Hop Chef here. The moment you destroy his bread, he has a new cake. He's already on that shit. He's like, yes, I will always be able to provide. I will be perfect. I will be the best. It's a strange, reoccurring trend across the Darkners that I feel like hints at a lot more deep self-image and confidence issues in Kris, and a fear of being left behind and being forgotten. Additionally, the egg room is the same in both chapters. I mean, like 1-to-1 identical, and no other egg rooms are identical besides 1 and 5. So again, there's gotta be something there. That's enough about the Dreemurr family and the Kris Dark Worlds. Let's talk about another Darkner, Ralsei. Kris initially does not fuck with Ralsei. They don't like him, and I think it's pretty obvious because, again, weird skinwalker clone of your brother. In chapters 1 and 2, they barely speak to each other. Chapter 1 in retrospect is actually really funny because it's just Ralsei talking to himself the whole time and hoping that Kris will say something in return, which they don't. However, come chapters 3 and 4, they seem to be coming around to liking Ralsei. There are a lot more dialogue.
What about the thing where they kind of just, take the soul away and say, "Oh, what's Susie doing?" Ooh.
We'll get back to that. The only time in chapters 1 and 2 that Kris and Ralsei have like an actual conversation is the acid tunnel of love, where there is literally nothing else to do but talk to Ralsei. But by chapters 3 and 4, they seem to be warming up to Ralsei. They seem to be coming around to him. I think at that point, they've effectively, in their mind, distanced Ralsei from Asriel and are being less weird and seeing him more for himself. You have more prompts to be nice to him, more prompts to talk to him in general, and they even go out of their way to do things of their own volition to keep Ralsei happy. For example, they show him compassion. For example, if you comfort Ralsei in Third Sanctuary, Kris will kneel down and hug him of their own volition. When Ralsei's having his crisis at the start of chapter 4, asking if it's okay for a Darkener to be developing into their own person, to be feeling their own emotions, to be selfish, if you try to tell Ralsei no, Kris will yawn in the middle of it. So instead of saying, "Of course not," they'll just say, "Of course." Like, yeah, you can feel like that. Kris very clearly cares for Ralsei come chapter 3. Chapter 4.
But we can all admit, we all chose Good Keep Smiling. We all chose this.
No, I chose that a weird route. And this is backed up by T theory. This is a kind of ancient theory that's really one-note and simple from chapter 2, where...
They said T series.
Let's talk about T series now. Ralsei had less subscribers than the... No. If you remember the character Ts from chapter 2, they heal different amounts to different characters based on their relationships. So as we can see here, the best example of this is Noelle, where Noelle heals 400 from Susie T because she wants to fuck Susie. She heals 50 from Ralsei because she doesn't know him, like, at all. And she heals 70 from Kris because they're kind of in a bit of an awkward situation.
Guys, for legal reasons, that's a joke.
Oh, that's not a joke. She wants Susie to, like, push her down and call her mean names and shit, bro. Like, Kris, the rest of the fun gang, they all heal 120 HP from each other's Ts. Kris heals 120 from Susie T, but only heals 60 from Ralsei. This is the lowest amount aside from the 50 HP for Noelle with Ralsei T and Ralsei with Noelle T, because they don't know each other. Kris knows Ralsei at this point. Not very long, of course, but still, they only heal 60 from it. Now, of course, back in the day, this led people to believe that Kris fucking hated Ralsei. I hate him so much! But no, it's just Kris was still weirded out by Ralsei at that point. This amount only increases to 100%, or not 100%, but 100 HP. After this scene in chapter 4, you have to say it's okay not to smile to raise that HP up to 100 HP from Ralsei T. I keep saying 100%. This is notable because you cannot even have the Ts in chapter 4. At the end of chapter 2, the Ts expire into Rotten T. So why go out of your way to code this HP change if this item is never going to be relevant again? Either Toby's going to bring the Ts back in chapter 6, which I doubt, or it's just meant to intentionally, point out Kris is warming up to Ralsei. And I think the reason for this is because this scene is Ralsei having a crisis over the prophecy, knowing that it's not avoidable and that everything's going to go to shit and everything that I care about is going to be lost. I think Kris relates to the fact that Ralsei feels bound by the prophecy, because Kris himself is also bound by multiple things: the promise, the night conspiracy, and us. Both Kris and Ralsei have an insane amount of knowledge on things that they don't want to know about. They never asked to know about, but they do know about them, and they're expected to do some heavy shit with that knowledge, and neither of them know what to actually do. They're both torn and conflicted between being honest and hiding things to keep people happy. I think Kris sees that and is like, "Yo, brother, you're just another me. Dab me up, homie." Also, Ralsei 100% knows about us. He very explicitly asks Kris to close their eyes and shift our perspective away so that he and Kris can get some alone time to chat. Ralsei knows that we exist, and it's really interesting to me that the only time that Ralsei explicitly says, don't actually close eyes and think about Susie, let's just chat is during chapter 5, where that's Ralsei's whole spiel about like, oh, I don't think you should be opening up dark. I don't think we should have any more dark fountains. You know, I think that things are going pretty bad. And Kris, even if you do things that I don't agree with, I know that you have a good heart and good intentions. Which also introduces the fact that Ralsei knows Kris is making fountains, which you could kind of already extrapolate based on the fact that Ralsei is always there when the fountains are made. But it just brings into question, how much do they know? Or sorry, how much does he know? And what exactly, like, what are you thinking? Just like say it, bro. I want to say everything to me. I need all the information. I need to know this. And in that scene, when Ralsei is saying like, oh yeah, you might do things that I don't agree with, that's very clearly referring to the player, referring to us making Kris do things that he might not agree with, like Weird Route, for example. We know on Weird Route in chapter 5 that Ralsei is very nervous and very worried, can't do anything. When Susie asks like, yo, is something like up? He just smiles and shakes his head. So even though we're doing things that he probably doesn't agree with, he still trusts that we are going to see it through to a better ending. Or maybe not a better ending, but to some ending. That we have some plan in mind. We really don't. We really don't. It's also interesting that on Weird Route, in this scene, when Ralsei talks about hoping that there could be more than one ending, he also adds, again on Weird Route, if there is something else, could it be even worse? What the fuck are we doing? I don't know, but we'll talk about Weird Route more later. For now, let's talk about Kris's other good buddy, Susan. Susie's the embodiment of like everything miserable about Kris, because while she is one of Kris's like true good friends, is she even really their friend?
What is the Kris Goon theory?
We'll get back to Kris Goon theory. Everything that has brought Susie and Kris together has been because of us, our intervention. The fact that they have gone on these Dark World adventures is because we are here. We kickstarted the events of the story. Susie's entire perspective on Kris is altered by us. So when it is eventually revealed that Kris and the soul are two different things, that's gonna hurt so bad, man. She's gonna be so heartbroken. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Susie is one of the few people to see Kris as their own person without any baggage from their past or Asriel. Which again is ironic because, hello, I'm here too. Susie perfectly matches their freak. The two of them are always on the same page. They drink the punch together. They eat the snack tray together. They absolutely go apeshit in the diner together. And I think all this points to the fact that Kris does genuinely enjoy being around Susie. Kris is not just going along with it for the sake of the plan and the prophecy. No, Kris does genuinely really like Susie, and they want to keep her safe. The very first moment of Kris agency in the entire game is Kris getting up of their own volition to defend Susie from King's attack at the end of the fight. We also see Kris agency return in chapter 4, where Kris does the coolest fucking thing ever. They take advantage of the fact that our perspective shifts when we close eyes and think about Susie to locate Susie in the darkness, find her, and protect her from Gerson, which, I mean, W days. Yeah, it's very clear that Kris does genuinely really like Susie. They might really like Susie and be very unhappy with the fact that her and Noelle are getting closer. Yes, you can have Kris third wheel Noelle's date with Susie at the festival, but by the end of the day, they're passed out. They don't care. They're asleep on a very uncomfortable picnic bench. They don't want to be there anymore. The whole day, they've been kind of pushed aside, and that's got to sting considering that Susie was the one person that always tried to get them involved, that always tried to, you know, see them as their own person and not just discount their presence like everyone else in Hometown. And it might sting a little more because, again, Kris really likes Susie. If you look at the pop-up ads in chapter 2, every character has the ability to click on pop-ups, and that will give you different dialogue based on the different characters. Kris's pop-up ads are kind of interesting. There's one of them about like sharp knives. I forget the third one, but the one we're talking about here is you unconsciously clicked on an ad for monsters for humans in your area. Why would they click on that? Why would they click on that? There's also the Susie T that we mentioned earlier, being a 120 HP heal, much higher than Ralsei's and Noelle's. There's the How to Draw Dragons book, which we know is a book with a scantily clad purple dragon on the cover, which Kris refuses to show Susie. The music video channel, Tenna mentions that, you know, there was a parental lock put on the music video channel because, oh, I guess your mother wasn't a fan of alligators in bikinis, which, you know, you could see that as Toriel just trying to keep her child away from inappropriate material, but also, why specify alligators? These are reptiles. Why specify that? There's also the hedges at the start of chapter 5, the conveniently shaped bush. If you choose to cut the Susie bush, Kris will give it very prominent lips, which could be pointing fun at the fact that Susie's lips look really stupid in certain sprites. Could also be for smooching. I mean, who knows? So it's very much implied that Kris may have romantic feelings for Susie. And I'm so fucking sorry, Kris. Like, listen, I was not given an option to cancel Noelle and Susie's date. I would have, bro. I'll be your W wingman. Just, I'm not given the option.
Wing. Wing.
We are hooking Kris up with Susie. So they had this friendship, this really, really good friendship that formed really quickly, and now it is very quickly dissolving as Susie is getting closer to Noelle and giving them less attention. And Kris, being this isolated, shut-in, probably is not taking that very well. And yet still, Kris would give the world to keep Susie safe. I want to direct your attention to the dialogue prompt in the top middle here. Say what's on your mind or say nothing. This is a dialogue prompt at the end of chapter 4, after everything's gone down, Dark World's been sealed, Third Sanctuary is done, and Susie is just really not happy right now. Between the last prophecy, whatever that may be, and knowing that they didn't even get to save Toriel, she's kind of in the pits. And I'm sure things didn't exactly go perfectly to plan for Kris either. Everyone's kind of at a low point right now. And this dialogue choice presents itself when you go sit at the beach, which has kind of become their spot at this point. They go to chill there every now and then. You can either say what's on your mind or say nothing. I am of the belief that the dialogue prompts in Deltarune are all things that are on Kris's mind. They're all things that Kris is thinking. This is supported by them saying things that we couldn't possibly know about, specific things, asking about the fruit juice in the church, singing the wrong number song, which I mean, I guess we could know that, but why would we want to bring that up? There are a lot of very specific dialogue choices that seem like they come directly from Kris, and I think this is one of the most important ones, where it's evident that Kris wants to be honest with Susie. Kris wants to be open and just tell her everything to make the eventual reveal not hurt as bad, but they just can't. If you try to say what's on your mind, Kris will speak with their mouth closed. I find it really interesting in general that Kris just lets them self-receive Susie's attention, especially knowing that it isn't really them. All of these things are things that Kris could say to Susie, but the question is, would they have said these things to Susie? All these things that make them get closer together, all these jokes that make Susie laugh, all these things that they do together, would Kris have done this? Susie says it herself in chapter 3 that they could have been friends ages ago, but they just never really spoke. Now, part of that was because Susie was still kind of being an asshole, but all it would have taken is just them two interacting. It didn't take a lot to get Susie to fold, bro. Like, it took one day of them hanging out for her to be like, you know what, maybe I am pacifists. And in just 4 days, she's gone from this violent tormentor to, no, we're not hurting that flowery guy. We're not gonna fight him. Their friendship is beautiful. They are so good for each other, but would they have ever come together in the first place? And how does Kris view that? Again, every dialogue choice is so interesting, because it's not just like, oh, my character said that instead of that. No, Kris is their own person, their own character with their own personality and their own history outside of you. Everything that they are able to say should be scrutinized, should be looked at. The fact that Kris wants to say what's on their mind to Susie in general, the fact that they want to protect her so badly, that's important. We gotta hold on to that. And yeah, Kris Goon Theory was kind of used for clickbait. Fucking, yeah, all the Pixel Whips videos are like semi-ironic, they're all semi-jokey. And the idea was that, oh...
Really? I thought Kris Goon Theory... Well, actually, no, that's not like... After Piss and Shit Theory, I wouldn't put Kris Goon Theory, but like, you know, out of the question.
The whole idea with Kris Goon Theory is that now that the internet's out, they had to bust out How to Draw Dragons, all reliable.
That's fucking stupid.
Yeah. In that video, they also say that Kris reproduces through asexual mitosis, and so whenever they hit that, whenever they hit the book, they make a new Kris. Yeah. I'll send you that video later. It's stupid. I saw the
That's
video while I was
awesome.
at work, bro. I watched that shit on my lunch break and I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
The bit is Kris's skin comes off and the baby Kris comes out and it starts
Kris
waddling around.
molts. Kris sheds skin. So yes,
You talked about Noelle, right?
and we're about to talk about Noelle.
We're about to do Noelle.
Welcome back to the
Second
sugar.
line of dialogue in the entire video. How do you feel?
I just had to make sure we were talking about the important stuff.
Really
about
important stuff like Kris Goon theory.
But yes, I think everything that Kris is able to say is as important as the things that they don't say, because every dialogue prompt comes from them. Like, okay, just the fact that both of these prompts are here says so much. This box right here is pretty much the MO of the video. Are they going to go with what they want to do, or are they just going to stick to their duty and keep being that silent, complacent pawn? Enough about their newest friend. Let's talk about their oldest friend, Noelle, the girl next door. Of course, one of Kris's oldest friends, but honestly, is she even still their friend? She's the only one in town that seems to know that something is wrong with Kris, that something has gone terribly wrong here, because they know each other better than anyone. And yet, what is she supposed to do here? They don't talk anymore. They're not really friends. They don't hang out anymore. What's going on here? What is she supposed to do? Like I said earlier, we know that Kris was constantly targeting her with their pranks, but overall, they were all harmless, because Kris knows when things go too far. In Cyber City, when you're doing the laser puzzle where one person needs to stand on the switch and the other person goes through, if you step off the button when Noelle's in the path of the laser, she gets upset with you. And then when you're walking through, she does it back to you. And she's laughing about it. She's like, oh, it's a prank, haha. And then she looks at Kris and she's like, wait, why does Kris look so hurt by that? Because Kris would not have done that to Noelle. Kris knows not to go too far. Kris knows to keep things calm, to keep things happy, to keep things still jokey overall. Yeah, I'll scare the shit out of her, but I'm not going to actually hurt her. And the moment that you do hurt her, they take issue with that. They used to hang out a lot, to the point where, of course, Kris will just take her stuff. You go into Noelle's room, you interact with her desk, and boop, pencil taken, no prompt, yes or no, mine now, this belongs to me. And we know they used to play games together, they bonded over that. I think the only game specifically that we see that they both played is Cat Petters. They likely also both bonded over Dragon Blazers, but we only see Cat Petters in both houses. We don't see Dragon Blazers anywhere in the Dreemurr house. So I don't know, maybe Kris wasn't a fan of Dragon Blazers. It does sound pretty anime, and Kris does not like anime. So they likely stuck to the more American Cat Petters RPG. But yes, they have definitely grown apart as well. Now, whether this is something that Kris had wanted or not is up in the air, but it's gotten to the point where Noelle can't really see their old friendship the same. As you see here in this very long dialogue section here, this is on the Ferris wheel in the festival, where Noelle will think back to when they were kids trying to win the King and Queen titles for themselves. Now, Noelle knew it wasn't going to happen back in the day. She already knew that. But yet, when the winners were announced, she started crying. She was so upset and no one could make her happy. After that, her and Kris went on the Ferris wheel, and when it reached the top, Kris shook the Ferris wheel. And in this moment, she's questioning, well, Kris, that was just your way of trying to cheer me up, wasn't it? If you shake the Ferris wheel in that moment, then she'll kind of start laughing again, she'll be happy. But if you don't shake the Ferris wheel, if you just sit there silently, she'll start doubting everything. She's like, no, I'm just being silly. You didn't want to win the ballot in the first place. You didn't care. It was just my imagination. You were just doing what I made you. Is it possible that Noelle thinks about their entire friendship like this, now that they have grown so far apart? That Kris maybe never really liked her in the first place? That we were never really friends? I mean, maybe we just hung out because our older siblings liked each other and not because we were friends? It's very obvious that she's overthinking this, that Kris does like Noelle. We know this for a fact, that Kris does fuck with Noelle. We know that they are very protective of her. In Cyber City, they very easily welcome her into the party. You know, better to have her by my side than to have her wandering around and getting her face turned into a robot or something. And on Weird Route, in Chapter 4, if you get into Noelle's room, but you don't go back into Kris fast enough, they will grab her hand and sprint out of the room with her. I've never seen this child run so fast. Why can't you do that in normal gameplay? But yes, and adding on to their protectiveness in Chapter 4 Weird Route, the very first prompt, the thing that lets you get into her room in the first place, is a proceed or a please don't prompt. They know that we're there and they're begging us to not hurt her. But of course, I paid $25. I gotta know, Kris. Because I think that's everything with
Kris
Noelle.
watching me get the most of my $25.
Have you seen that one meme where it's like Kris at the airport doing like a little questionnaire? It's like, are you a terrorist? Yes or no? And the soul's like, dude, I paid $25.
I gotta see what happens.
I gotta see what happens. I gotta know. And additionally, the Chapter 5 Shadow Crystal has very, very interesting implications depending on how you look at it. Now, we know that these shadow crystals are broken dreams. So what does it mean when you look through them? Well, looking at what Kris sees when Kris looks through them, they see a few things. They see Susie glaring at them coldly, like they don't like them. They see their mother holding someone else. And in Chapter 5, they see Noelle, no one else there, just Noelle, smiling and holding flowers. So what is the implication here? If you keep using the crystal...
I'm sorry for interrupting, but
Okay.
just so I remember when Death.
Yeah, so what is the implication here? If you keep using the crystal, Kris will become increasingly dismissive about what they're seeing through the crystal. They'll keep saying like, oh, it didn't mean anything, until the point where they just don't even look through the crystal anymore, saying it's useless. So what are these visions? What do they imply? Knowing that the shadow crystals are like broken, lost dreams, are these things that Kris had hoped for that had never happened? I could see that being the truth, because if Susie didn't actually like them, then whatever they're going to have to do in the future and end up betraying her, it's going to be a lot easier. Maybe they had expected their mother to love someone else instead of them, to be much more favorable to Asriel, and the fact that she's trying so pathetically now is just hurting them more than it's actually helping them. And maybe they really did want Noelle's attention. They never did want to grow apart from her, but the circumstances ultimately did drive them apart. Maybe they do have feelings for her, but those feelings will never come to fruition now, especially now that she likes Susie.
Hell, fucking imagine your old crush getting together with your new crush. I'd kill myself, bro. I won't lie. The speed at which I'd boom my own head off is crazy.
Bro, I'd be doing the lake skip solo. I'd be in that shit instantly. Now, another way you can look at the shadow crystals is that these are Kris's fears. Maybe they're afraid of Susie hating them. Maybe they're afraid of Toriel moving on to someone that isn't them. But in that case, would they fear Noelle's affection? The fact that Noelle's vision is completely totally distant from the other two visions, it kind of puts an interesting spin on things no matter which way you look at them. I personally like to look at it the first way, that Kris would find things a lot easier if Susie didn't like them, that Kris would have expected Toriel to move on to someone that isn't them, that Kris still yearns for Noelle's companionship. Because I think ultimately that is a very big part of Kris's character. We've seen them isolate themselves so much, and they still do yearn companionship. They still do want to be friends with Susie, with Noelle. They still want to be happy, but they just are in a situation where they can't do that. Before we go on, do we have any questions, or are we on the same page so far? Anything you guys want to say or not?
No questions, very straightforward. It's a Kris worst yearner on the entire planet.
Wait, did we talk about Birdly?
No, we have not talked about Birdly yet.
Let's talk about Birdly.
Which actually, funny enough, the next slide is on Kris's classmates, and I forgot to put Birdly in here.
Baby. Let's talk about Birdly.
I forgot to put Birdly in here, but I can briefly talk about Birdly. Kris's relationship with Birdly is pretty interesting.
You put fucking Jockington in here instead of Birdly.
Jorkington. Yes, Kris's relationship with Birdly is pretty interesting because, as we know, Birdly is someone who is also very isolated and alone. And unlike Kris, who seems to have like a valid reason for doing this, Birdly's stuff is entirely self-inflicted. So I think that they still feel a little bit of guilt over him. Or not guilt, but like they do feel bad for him. But they do still ultimately they do like him. Curdly forever. We see in the Holiday Girl comments section on Spamton Sweepstakes that someone pranked Birdly into deleting Minecraft, but then helped him get it back. I said last time I believe this is Kris. I still believe this is Kris because, again, Kris knows when things have gone too far and is willing to try to help fix things. Additionally, Kris just has one of Birdly's feathers. Why? How'd they get that? When did they get that? Why did they get that? It seems like Kris does want the best for Birdly, but I mean, it's Birdly. He's annoying. They're not going to choose to hang out with him, but they still do like him. Which, I will say that is still important, because even the most annoying asshole, Kris still wants some attention and friendship from. They are still a good-hearted kid, but again, circumstances do not allow them to really express that and explore that and be that. Let's talk about the rest of Kris's classmates. Unless there's something else you wanted me to talk about with Burley. Anything that I missed? Anything specific? I'll take that as a no. So, the rest of Kris's classmates are pretty inconsequential, but they do still provide a little bit of extra Kris lore that does fill in a few holes. For one, Caddy. We know that Kris used to study the occult with Caddy, and they attempted to summon a demon together, but Caddy ran away before the summoning was finished and left Kris to do it alone. I find this image really interesting and funny because back in the Chapter 2 era, everyone gaslit themselves into thinking that Caddy was going to be a very important character. It was always, yeah, Caddy and Jockington, Church Dark World, Chapter 4, the weird route with Caddy and Jockington, we turn them evil, yes, this will happen, they'll be very important characters, and it's like, guys, it's fucking Caddy and Jockington. I wish I knew who made this picture, because I want to ask them what the fuck they thought would happen with Caddy.
What if she's a cat, and you know who else is a cat? Friend.
Ping. Jorkington, I mean, he's chill as fuck, but he also has a lot of really weird, vague foreshadowing. This line from Chapter 4 caused a bit of brain rot. There was like a solid month where everyone thought that Jockington might just be Friend, because there was like this misinformation floating around that Jockington started to lose color in Chapter 4 when his speech patterns became like really, really bad. And then coupled with this line here, where he's like, Kris, life is a big ball game, and when the man is on the field, he does a big dunk. Try to be that dunk. And then you end the chapter by dunking Kris into a Titan. He's also the only named character in the prophecy. No one else's name is there except for Jockington. Which means that Jockington's name is like biblical. It's like naming your kid Moses, but it's Jockington.
Bro, all I'm saying is Jockington's a snake. Snakes look like big tails. Tail of hell.
That's the thing. Temmie tweeted like a long time ago that a cat's tail is like a snake in disguise. And so people found that tweet, and we just had like a solid like month or two of Jockington and Caddy are somehow friend. And that was really funny. That was actually really funny looking back, because like it's fucking Jorkington. He's not gonna be important. Monster Kid, I mean, he's chill with Kris. He's a little awkward, but also he introduces the fact that something happening between Kris and the shelter is like common knowledge. We've seen a few townspeople kind of fear the shelter. Monster Kid outright confirms people know something bad happened there, and whatever it was, it involved Kris. We have this exchange between him and Snowy at the end of Chapter 2. It's like, do you think it's true? Do you really think that there's... What are you, chicken? You got a beak and wings like a chicken? No, just... I ain't afraid, only kids believe that stuff. But Kris... You gonna be a weenie like Kris? And they know something happened. Now, how much people know? Probably not a lot, considering that Asgore was trying so desperately to prove that something happened, but it is commonly known, at least, that something did in fact happen. And speaking of Snowy, I mean, like, the most racist motherfucker in all of fiction. This screenshot in the top right is from Undertale. His racism transcends dimensions. But of course, you can't talk about Kris without mentioning the promise. We've talked about their desires. Let's talk about the duty. The night conspiracy, the evil-ass roaring
As you know,
group chat.
Kris, I'm fucking your dad.
You know what's fucked up, actually? The original, like, glowing red text you edit, I found out while editing the last video. Gaster is in that image. He's hidden in the black space, and he only appears if you like brighten it up a ton. It's the funniest thing
Real
ever.
life Gasterisms back at it again.
Another IRL Gastrophe. Yeah. Do you know how many times my like Google UI kept vanishing while I was trying to edit that video too? Like, oh my god, he's actually trying to stop me. But yes, so the night conspiracy, the evil ass roaring group chat, Carol cucking Asgore, whatever you want to call it. It is the big web of lies and deceit and trickery and dark world shenanigans Kris is involved in. What their goal is, we don't know. We just know, at the very least, that Kris is involved, Carol is involved, the Knight is involved, and whoever the phone voice is involved. Which, by the way, the phone voice is not just Carol, I swear to God. Everyone says that the phone voice is Carol, but it's on speakerphone and we're too far away so we can't hear it. What the fuck do you mean? 5 minutes after we see the phone scene in the kitchen, The phone scene with the evil spiky text box and garbled warbly noise whenever dialogue appears. We go into the basement of the Holiday Manor and we can perfectly hear Susie and Noelle talking above us. There is no muffling or anything. We can just hear them perfectly. Why would the phone, which is only blocked by a vent grate, be so incomprehensible when Susie and Noelle can be heard perfectly through an entire fucking floor? And hey, also, at the end of the chapter, when we're in the exact same room as the phone, it's still evil! That's not Carol, I swear! I know that it says, I'll be right there, and then Carol shows up, but like, come on, there's gotta be something more there. It's too evil and malicious, but I'll hop off my soapbox and get back on topic. Whatever's going on with this Evil Last Night conspiracy, it seems to involve Dark Worlds, it seems to involve the kidnappings, and it seems to involve us, the soul. What their goal is, like I said, we don't know. They seem to be giving Kris small bits of information as necessary. Otherwise, like, why explain, like, oh yeah, we're doing all this stuff today. Why not have that done in advance? It seems like Kris is on a very need-to-know basis with them. And no matter what they say, Kris obeys. Police sacrifice? Yep. I got you. I did that. Church tonight? I'll be there. Keep the soul? I'll keep the soul. It seems like we're only here because this whole conspiracy needs us to be here. That they need Kris to keep us caged. And I quoted cage here because that word has always stuck out to me. What do you mean the cage? That word carries a very specific connotation with it. An implication of keeping something dangerous contained. Why? Now, of course, we know that the soul has the ability to, kind of possess and influence something, but the fact that we need to be caged so well hidden inside of a person like this, it kind of has some weird implications to me. But whatever the Night Conspiracy is doing, whatever this promise is based on, it's so important to Kris that they are willing to blindly follow it. They will distance themselves from everyone, they will ruin their own lives, they will hurt themselves for what?
You look, you got in the world because you're bored.
That's the thing, they can't just be trying to start the roaring, because if they wanted to start the roaring, well, just start spamming fountains. It's very easy, just fucking do that. I don't know, I think their goal is a little more intricate than that. It could be something about deaths, it could be something about the roaring.
100% is, there's no fucking way it isn't.
Like, it's gotta be deaths, but then at the same time, it's like, if Death Knight is real, then, well, she's right there and you're working with her. Obviously, she's not in, like, tip-top shape, but, like...
Here's where Rory Knight comes in.
But with that being said, after dissecting what cage might mean, let's talk about us. Let's look inward and dissect us and Kris's relationship with us, because they fucking hate us. They're terrified of us, and we, yes, we, you and me, are ruining their life.
Look,
and
they might not fuck with us, and I might be a bit of a dickhead to them, but they're gonna love us eventually. They'll fuck with us eventually. Well, they're chapter 7.
Are they? It might be
friends.
begrudging.
Yeah, we'll be friends. We'll be friends.
I don't think it's unlikely.
We're gonna get those t-shirts where it's like two sleeves and 2 people can fit in it.
We're just the heart. We are, of course, the one possessing Kris. Obviously, everyone knows at this point that Kris and the soul are 2 separate entities, and the soul is meant to explicitly be us. We are inside of Kris, reading their mind and forcing them to act upon their thoughts. We can see what they're thinking, we can make them act on what they're thinking, and ultimately, we need them to even experience Deltarune in the first place. And in tandem, Kris needs us to stay alive. Now, Chapter 5 gave us this amazingly horrific opening cutscene of Kris throwing themselves back into their window, green and sickly, dragging themselves across the room to get us back inside of them. We are vital for Kris to survive. They are clearly weakening without us. They clearly cannot operate as well without us. Whenever we are out of them, they move a lot slower, they move a lot stiffer, they move a lot more ravenously. It's like everything that they do is forced and unrefined. Now, some people theorize that Kris is in fact dead, and the soul is just keeping them alive, which I don't disagree with, but I don't think that they're outright dead. I feel like that would have made a bit more of a news presence. I don't know. I just don't think that could be something
what do you mean, like, dead?
Just the general theory is that somehow Kris is dead, either because they lost their own soul, or maybe Image Friend killed them.
Like, if years, and then just, oh, Nuso came along last week. Okay, awesome.
Maybe they died in an ice lake. But whether or not Kris is dead, the point is they need us now to seemingly stay alive and function. Which is really interesting because they have no qualms about hurting us, even though it only hurts them in the end. They beat the shit out of us with the hockey stick in the closet in Chapter 4. In Chapter 4 Weird Route, they get a lot more violent with us. They will throw us into a cage as hard as possible, and they don't care. They don't like us. And if it hurts them in the process, they'll hurt us. Even though it doesn't actually hurt us, because I'm just pressing keys on a keyboard, you can't hurt me, teehee. And interestingly, they want to keep us hidden from their friends as much as possible. Now, whether this is because, like, they don't want anyone catching on, or they fear us possessing someone else, or what have you. Just in general, if you had like some otherworldly parasite inside of you, knowing that it could control and manipulate you, and then it got out of you, I think you'd want to keep that thing under wraps too. Their role is to keep us caged. And I think that's really interesting that ultimately seems to be their entire role in the story, because that is what they are prophesized as. They are prophesized as the cage. Susie is the girl, Ralsei is the prince, but Kris is the cage. Not even the human who cages, just the cage. So again, what is the implication there? Why are we caged? Why must we be so limited? Because ultimately, we're not that limited. We can just override Kris's will. We can make them do what we want. And yet at the same time, they're able to override us. They can still resist us. They can still go against our commands. They can still rephrase things and reword things. And hell, even the dialogue prompts that we're given are still things that are dictated by them. Banging sermon, my man. That's because they would say that. I find the power dynamic between the player and Kris really interesting because it's so back and forth. There's no one side that consistently wins over the other. Kris can always resist us, Kris can always act on their own, and yet we still seem to be able to completely override them, except for in the Dark Worlds. I already talked about Kris's Dark Worlds earlier, but I want to take another little gander back into those Dark Worlds and dissect a few things a bit more. So I think they give us a bit more perspective on Kris as a character in a way that I don't see a lot of people actually talk about the implications of, but I'm gonna say it because I'm that bitch. Sword Route, ERAM, and the Forgotten Man. Altogether, the three of them paints a very interesting picture of Kris. Now, the Forgotten Man, I kind of wish I put him in the previous one, but I didn't. He is, of course, the man behind the tree who you can find in every chapter in a hidden room, and he always gives you an egg. Now, in chapters 1 and 2, there's not much to him, he's just kind of there. But chapters 3, 4, and 5 give him a bit more text, which actually, gives him some character. In chapter 3, he tells you the story about how there used to be another world, but then this world was built on top of that world. How he can't speak safely anywhere, but specifically the chapter 3 egg room. He gives you his schedule so you can find him again. In chapter 4, you find him again in a therapist office, an art therapy office. And in chapter 5, when he finally departs for good, Kris seems upset. Now, who is the Forgotten Man? This has been theorized for a while, but the interpretation that I like the most is that the Forgotten Man is like a therapist or a psychiatrist or someone that Kris went to help for after the Des incident happened. Obviously, it was a very traumatic and intense experience for them, and I think that is the event that changed their life and changed them permanently. I think the Des appearance is obviously what turned them from that happier, outgoing child into this stoic, unmoving, unhappy, isolated thing. And the fact that they seem saddened at his departure kind of stands out to me, that perhaps Kris reached the end of their therapy, right? Maybe that's when Toriel was like, okay, this is your last appointment, you seem to be making some good progress, but Kris himself might have thought, wait, no, I am not ready yet, I am not good yet, I'm still not back to how I should be. They didn't think they were ready to go back to normal. And clearly there is still something there inside of them. And I think that is brought out and displayed through Sword Route. Now, Sword Route is the unaltered version of Tenna's game. Tenna's game, which is presented to you as this happy, enjoyable, fun experience, is a modified, changed up, and altered, built-over version of MANTLE. This original game hidden away backstage where no one can see it, where the only one that knows what's there is Kris. This alternate version of the game where Kris is isolated, where Kris gives in to these violent urges, where Kris is goaded by ERAM. ERAM, this being who seems to know Kris better than anyone, who knows that Kris is enjoying this, who knows that this is what they really want. They know that Kris enjoyed weird routes. And I think that's a big, big thing that people don't talk about enough. Everyone posted it when Chapter 3 first came out, but no one really talks about it these days. The fact that Kris enjoyed weird routes. He says, "Oh, isn't it fun playing around like this? That's why you're searching for the shadow crystals, aren't you? And the shadow mantle that I'm holding. Do you think it'll get you what you want? No, you're just enjoying this, aren't you? The same part of you that enjoyed yesterday, and knowing you could say it wasn't really you." This is framed by ERAM explicitly as a lie, as cope that Kris is using to distance themselves from the event of Chapter 2, where of course you fucking murder Birdly. Not just that, you go on a whole rampage through Cyber City, freezing up everyone. And ERAM kind of gets through to Kris. They kind of break some lock open in their mind. And it's enough to get Kris to start feeding into those violent urges back in their own, self. I guess real life would be the way to describe that, but it's still in the dark world. After you complete Sword Route, Kris does a ton more damage to Tenna. Tenna, the embodiment of everything that they have lost, of all the happy fun times they can never, ever get back. Where am I going with all this? Well, like I said, I think we need to look a little bit deeper into Mantle. A lot of people are looking into Mantle these days as, oh, it's what's going to happen next in the story. It's the prophecy. We're going to go to the Ice Palace, we're going to do this, and that, and I'm tired of hearing that. Everyone says the same things over and over again, but let's change our perspective just a little bit. By this point, we have characterized Kris as someone who is isolated, someone who's alone, someone who has a lot on their plate, someone who has gone through a lot, someone who is in a very, very bad state. Now, it's not unheard of for people like Kris, people so isolated, people so damaged, to have these negative, harmful emotions express themselves through little fantasies. The Dark Worlds are described explicitly as fantasies. And Chapter 3, again, Kris's Dark World would reflect their will, their mind, and be their fantasy. And in their fantasy, we find hidden away in the back, in the dark, in a small corner of the world, this alternate version of something that they experience normally, where it's just them, uninhibited, expressing themselves. And why is this so important? Well, remember, Tenna's game was modified, altered, changed to be more enjoyable, more appealing. If Tenna's game was altered to be more tolerable, then Mantle is perhaps the mask coming off. A true representation of Kris's psyche. I'm not saying Kris is a deranged sociopath or anything, but they definitely have a lot of violent urges. These negative emotions perhaps might have manifested themselves as violent outbursts, and that could have been what the therapy was meant to treat in the first place. That maybe after the disappearance, whatever happened, Kris started to act out and become violent, and they needed help over that. Perhaps they began to enjoy this violence. Perhaps that was their coping mechanism. Perhaps, like ERAM said, some part of them enjoys this. And in fact, it's not just ERAM that says this, it's also RAM. RAM is the one who lets you into the backstage in the first place, knowing that Kris wants freedom. Now, what does this mean, freedom in this case? I feel like when people theorize about freedom in Deltarune, they try to make it one thing that can blanket everything. Like, okay, Jevil wants freedom, Spamton wants freedom, Kris wants freedom. Freedom has to be this one thing that they all want. But I think that freedom could be something different for everyone. And in Kris's case, it could be freedom to just feel these emotions. Now, sit up in my chair here. So my whole big theory here, my whole big interpretation of Mantle, is that Mantle is one giant self-insert power fantasy of Kris, and one that they find shameful. Because throughout the years, they have been told that these emotions are wrong. They know these emotions are wrong. They agree that they're wrong, and yet they can't stop themselves from feeling these emotions, from having these thoughts. Even though they know they're wrong and they know they can't act on them, they still think about them. And, you know, when they were young, maybe that had come out in Dragon Blazers or Cat Petters RPG, whatever the fuck you think Mantle was actually meant to be. A lot of people decided that Mantle is just like one-to-one, you're playing Dragon Blazers, which is based on the prophecy, because it's based on Lord of the Hammer, and so yes, this is the prophecy, this is what's going to come true. But I don't think that's accurate, considering that Hero Sword in Mantle, the main character you play as there, is just KRIS'S Dark World design. It's just KRIS. All the enemies can be paralleled to real people in Hometown. And also, you go into the shelter! If anything, Mantle is probably a recreation of some childish fantasy that KRIS used to have back in the day, where they would self-insert into Dragon Blazers and have all the fun they could have possibly wanted. And this isn't unheard of either. In Chapter 5, Tenna, if you still have him in Castletown, will tell you that Noelle, whenever she would play Super Smashing Fighters, wouldn't actually play the game. She would just play house with all the characters. Could this have been KRIS'S version of doing that? Of having their fun? Of having just the ability to express these emotions, to work through these thoughts in a controlled, safe environment? If this is a fantasy that they had as a child, that's not something you could just so easily move on from. This would be something that would be so deeply ingrained in their psyche, and it can't just be abandoned, forgotten, and moved on from. Because like it said in the Chapter 4 Egg Room, in the therapy room, you can never wash it all away. No matter how hard KRIS tries, no matter how much they are told to abandon these urges, these impulses, these emotions, this fantasy, they can't. Because it is fundamentally a part of who they are as a person. KRIS is not good, like, mentally. They are not, like, stable right now. They still have a lot of issues that never got properly worked through, and I think all that really comes to a head in Weird Route. If KRIS does have this festering, violent side, this side that tells them all these things that are wrong are things that they want, the side that they know is wrong and they actively try to repress and keep held down so that no one has to deal with this, that they don't have to deal with it, then is Weird Route them managing to actually achieve that power fantasy in real life? They know it's wrong and they know they should keep it hidden, and so they do. But then an otherworldly being is put inside of them that can manipulate their thoughts and make them act upon said thoughts. Oops! My bad! A few things of note here. KRIS does not outright resist in Weird Route. In Chapter 2 Weird Route, they let us do these things to Noelle. Now, KRIS does not seem to be able to outright ignore us in the Dark World, and they've never ripped us out in the Dark World either. This could have consequences, you know, we don't know that yet. They have been able to manipulate our commands in the Dark World at the very least. As we said earlier, with Ralsei, if you try to be mean to Ralsei, they'll cover their mouth, they'll yawn, they'll say no. But when you're telling Noelle to proceed over and over again, when you're having Noelle freeze all these enemies, when you're doing this, that, and the other thing to Noelle, they don't resist. They let it happen. Perhaps they just wanted to experience their fantasy in this controlled environment, this fake world where nothing really matters. Yeah, you know what? I'll have a little bit of fun, we'll have a little bit of freedom, and then afterwards, if anything goes wrong, I'll fix it. Now, things do go really, really badly in Chapter 2 Weird Route, but between Chapters 2 and 4, they try their best to undo everything that we did, because they're not happy with it. Yes, they derive enjoyment from these things, but they still feel shame from these things. They know that they're wrong, they know they shouldn't enjoy it, but a part of them did. But you know what? They had their fun. Back to normal now. Back to normal, back to normal. We're good now, we're normal. Okay? I'm gonna go see Noelle, I'll give her back her watch, I'll take the thorn out of her finger, thorn ring go bye-bye, Birdly, Birdly, okay, let me at least bring him to the hospital, they can help him out there, alright, everything, back to normal, we're good now, but then we get to Chapter 4, where they, of their own volition, kept the thorn. We did not tell KRIS to keep the thorn. They made that choice. They kept the thorn and they brought it with them to Noelle's house. That was their choice. We had absolutely zero part in that. But why? Because now that they've tasted that fantasy, now that they have been able to express those emotions again, they've gotten a taste of this again, they can't so easily stop themselves now. there is still a part of them that enjoyed it, and they can't deny that. As much as they feel shame over it, they can't deny that. In Chapter 4 Weird Route, when you make the dialogue choice that really locks you into that route, that dialogue choice is this one here in the very beautiful artistic rendition of this scene, me. Many people have correctly interpreted this to mean me as in me, the one on the keyboard, me the player. This is after Noelle asks, like, wait, why are you so upset? Who's gonna hear me saying all this stuff about how you went and fixed everything? Why do you want me to stop talking? Who's gonna hear? Me. Me. John Real Lobter here, me will hear. But I think it's also me as in Kris. It's bad because I'm gonna hear it. Now, of course, Kris hearing it means that we hear it by extension. But remember, the dialogue prompts seem to be things that Kris is actively thinking, seem to be things that are on Kris's mind. So, if Kris hears these things, and we hear these things, Kris's mind is gonna start going, it's gonna start chugging along on its own as the seed progresses. The thoughts that they are trying to push down are going to rise up to the surface, and because we're here, we're gonna make them act on those thoughts. That is what they're terrified of in the moment. Not just like, oh my god, player Chan is going to make me become evils. The evil's already inside of them. The thing that got me thinking about this in the first place is the fact that Weird Route is even possible. I kept thinking about, why is this possible? Why is this a thing in the game? Well, if dialogue prompts and choices are from Kris, then that would explain it. And then I started thinking about MANTLE again. MANTLE, this violent video game power fantasy, where ERAM reveals Kris is having fun, Kris enjoyed this, everything started to click, everything came together. One of the central themes of Weird Route is freedom, is breaking free of the norm, of what the world has already put in front of you. And if this world has told Kris multiple times that they should not be feeling like this, and they know they shouldn't be feeling like this, then Weird Route is them freeing themselves. It's them allowing themselves to feel this. Maybe allowing isn't the right word, because it's not like they're a willing participant in this. Describing them like this kind of makes it sound like a Chapter 1 theory, where Chapter 2 will be Kris committing genocide route in the whole town. And that's not what I'm saying. Again, Kris is not an evil, bad person. They just have really, really bad, intrusive thoughts. They have these violent thoughts, these malicious thoughts that they try their damnedest to push down and repress because they know that they're wrong, that they're not correct, that they shouldn't be feeling that, but we're here and we're forcing these out. And Kris still feels terrible about them, but yet there's still a part that they enjoy. It's a guilty pleasure for them. And in this route, we force that guilty pleasure to rise to the surface. Whenever people talk about Weird Route, they always describe Kris as this unwilling victim, just a pure victim in this, nothing but a puppet. And while I don't disagree with that interpretation necessarily, I think that it's honestly really dismissive of a lot of disparate small pieces of evidence. Again, why is this possible? What about Weird Route supposedly made us get so much more control over Kris? Nothing changed on our end. The only explanation would be that something is different with Kris, that Kris actually changed. Kris found a way to stop being Kris. And no one wants to point that out. No one wants to notice that because they don't want to. They don't want to see how interesting Kris is if you don't look at them as this pure, unwilling victim. Noelle figured it out just like I figured it out. Guys, I solved Weird Route. I just kept thinking of a way to get Weird Route to diegetically make sense within the context of the story. Because, yeah, I can see it very easily being that, okay, it's the player taking control of the plot, hijacking it, bending the story to be something different. And I still think that that would apply in this case. But I also don't think it's fair to discount Kris in all this. Again, Kris is not this malicious, deranged psychopath, but I don't think that they're innocent in all this either. Remember, the art therapy, I didn't actually point it out in the previous slide. The previous slide. In art therapy, you're told this is where we draw pictures and don't kill each other. There has to be a link between the therapy that Kris most definitely attended and whatever the fuck's going on in MANTLE and Weird Route. we already know that Mantle is explicitly tied to Weird Route 2, being that it teaches you, like, oh yes, you can use the ice magic. What if that only manifested because Kris realized that in Chapter 2? Because Kris knew that Noelle had an ice spell. Now, this gets into whether or not you think that, you know, the characters can interact with the meta elements as well, that Kris would be able to see Noelle's spell list. And based on Ralsei in Chapter 5 confirming that the menus do exist diegetically, I do think that Kris could have had some knowledge over Noelle's ice magic. So what if in that moment they thought, wait, what if? You know, what if? You know, like Susie will hold back because she's nice, but like Noelle's new to all this. What if? Just what if? Just what if? That is how I view Mantle. It is Kris's intrusive thoughts, Kris's power fantasy, Kris's little harmful manifested emotions coming out in the dark where no one else can see them besides them. Because again, you can never truly wash it all away. Kris can never be entirely, quote unquote, corrected after the incident with Des. This will stay with them forever, and they can't help who they are.
Drink all the water in the lake.
But yes, this is an interpretation of Weird Route that I don't think I've really seen other people have or really talk about. People will always talk about like, oh yeah, Kris enjoyed a part of Weird Route? Huh, that's weird. Kris has a violent streak? Huh, that's weird. But no one really connects the dots like this. Because again, from the start, Kris was always painted out as an unwilling, innocent victim in Weird Route. Again, I don't think that that is a fair interpretation. I think that discounts a lot of what's actually here in the route. Now, any questions on what I had said?
No, it's fine, really. I speak for all of us.
Yeah, they are in fact speaking for everyone.
So, if there's no further questions, we can move on to summarize where Kris is now, and it is not in a good spot.
The future of Kris.
Kris is all alone. They're isolated, they can't tell the truth to anyone. They have two amazing, great friends who love them unconditionally, but the them that they love isn't even actually them. It's a them tainted by us. They have made so many other friends that aren't even real. And one of the true, real friends that they have is kind of losing her fucking mind. She's coping so hard right now, immersing herself more and more in a fantasy that one day will have to come to an end. And the old friend, the one that they've done so much with, the one that they've grown apart from, is now back in their life, but she doesn't care about you, she cares about your new friend who's becoming more invested in her than you. Both their parents are in danger. One of them's been actually kidnapped, and both incidents were their fault. No one can shut up about how much cooler their brother was than them. Hey, when's your brother coming home? Hey, your brother and I used to do this. Hey, your brother's this, your brother's that. And if that wasn't enough, they have to deal with our bullshit. They have to have the physical and mental strain of having us in their life as they play the role of a pawn, slowly marching towards a fate that they cannot avoid. And this whole thing is all orchestrated because of the death, disappearance, or loss of their childhood friend. At the end of the day, all they want, truthfully, is friendship. They just want to have fun with Susie and drink fruit juice together. They want to play the piano while Ralsei sings. They want to reignite their relationship with Noelle. They want to be friends again, but they can't. They can't because they have to do this promise. Some part of them feels that they are bound to this multi-dimensional plan to fix something that they might have been a part of causing. And eventually, they're gonna have to pick a side. Eventually, they're going to have to choose between goofing off and having fun with their friends or fully committing to the promise. In other words, Kris will have to choose between duty or desire. Anyone else get chills right now? Oh my god, that was tough. Wasn't that tough? Oh my god.
I feel my goosebumps.
So tough.
Oh, is shivering is cold? Snow graves?
Oh my god, bruh.
It's like some sort of snow grave.
He's in some kind of snow grave. That was a lot, so I want to move into the final parts of this video with a bit more lighter of a topic. It has been a topic of debate for a while, who exactly Kris is. Everyone is an analog for Kris in everyone's an analog in Deltarune of someone in Undertale, but who is Kris? And yeah, I think Kris is Kara, but it's not that simple. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that, and there's also a bit of Frisk in there. For one, both Kris and Kara have complicated relationships with other humans. We know that Kara didn't really like humans. Asriel says this word for word. And Kris, upon seeing other humans in the How to Care for a Human book, shuts the book quickly. They are weirded out by other humans. They don't live around other humans. They don't get along with other humans. They both yearn for a level of control and agency in their own lives. Obviously, Kara wanted to, be as strong as possible, detached from everything, but Kris also has us inside of them. Their life is literally not entirely in their control. They have us, and they're also bound to the promise, and they're bound to the prophecy as well. Both Kris and Kara are the human adopted children of the Dreemurrs. Obviously, that's a very specific point that Frisk does not have. They both also have an obsession with knives, and they both love chocolates. When Kris has to deliver the chocolates in Chapter 1 for Alphys, no matter what, they will always sneak at least one bit of chocolate out of there, because they like chocolate. There's also the important person shirt, which this is going to be our little interactive section for this time. Let's go to the Fangamer website. Fangamer. Collections. Undertale.
Klonoa?
Yeah, they have Klonoa. They got a lot of shit here.
What the fuck? I gotta buy that. I gotta buy that now. It's crazy how they feel the money leaving my wallet.
For in the Undertale collection, we can find... I always forgot how old this thing is. There it is. The important person shirt is in the Undertale collection. Now, if we go to the Deltarune collection...
Yeah, I was actually looking at that earlier, and it's also there, yeah.
The important person shirt is also here. If we read the description, the pattern of a shirt worn by a beloved someone, your love will become theirs, and their love will become yours. Now again, we already know that love is a loaded term in Undertale and Deltarune. This shirt, which is pretty much identical between Kara and Kris, is listed on both collections on Fangamer, not belonging to one or the other. What'd that mean? Obviously,
is it really Kara's shirt if it doesn't have the yellow stripes on the arms?
Yeah, that's the thing that people say, is that Kara's shirt doesn't have the yellow arm stripes, so maybe it references Asriel instead, because I think his shirt actually does have those stripes. But also, Undertale's art style is... We didn't have enough pixels to make their arms fucking have the stripe, okay?
I'll be so honest, when I first saw Kara, I thought it was like a weird skin-like stripe in the middle of their chest for no reason.
It is like the exact same color. We also, of course, know that they're both pranksters as well, so there is a lot of shared DNA between Kris and Kara. However, there's also a pinch of Frisk in there as well. Kris obviously visually shares Frisk's skin color. Kris shares their hair color. They also both fill the role as a player vessel. Additionally, I don't like this point, but they have a similar name. I don't like this point because it operates on the same logic as Ness is Sans, where if you rearrange the letters and you change one of them, it's the same name. But, I mean, there's no C in Kris. I think that obviously there's a lot of intentional Kara parallels there, especially with them both.
Yes, there is.
In Kris?
Yes.
KRIS? There's a C in there?
Bro, sound it out.
KRIS.
CHRIS.
That's not how you spell Kris in Deltarune.
It's just a guy called Kris.
There's just a second, like, okay, yeah, sorry. So I put the soul in Kris, KRIS, but I was supposed to put the soul in the guy named Kris, CHRIS. Gaster shows up at the end, and he's like, wait.
I was getting really fucking mad. I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, man.
It's like, wait, who the fuck are you? You're not Kris. What's your name? Kris? Oh, Image friend, get over here. What did you do? I don't think it's as easy as one or the other. I think it's both of them. There's also people that think that Kris is the patient soul from Undertale, but as of Chapter 5, I think we can all understand why that theory is dead in the water. In the water?
Yeah, I kind of like that. Kind of like that theory. That's cute.
It had some weight back in Chapters 1 and 2, and even 3 and 4. Because Kris's Dark World design is cyan. Kris has a knife. I think there's more to it than that, but...
Is that one scene with Aqua where she says, like, her color changed or something?
Yeah, that's another thing. People try to use that these days to say that, oh, Kris originally had a patient soul, but then it became a different soul. We got added to the picture, and that's supported by the fact that Aqua... And I'll talk about Aqua in a second, but Aqua changes her color from cyan to red at one point. She dances in, like, the red dye splatter. Yeah, you know how I said I was going to talk about Aqua in a second? I forgot to talk about Aqua in a second. And I also wanted to talk about all the flowers, which you'll see that on the next slide, but I just kind of didn't. So here I am in editing. Better late than never? Question mark? Yes, Kris does share a lot of similarities with Aqua. They're both blue, they both have knives, they're both pranksters, and Aqua's first fight, the first flower fight in general, it is a solo fight with just Kris, where Aqua copies what you do. You can look at this as the game directly saying, okay, Kris and Aqua have parallels. However, I feel like this might just be circumstantial. The whole point of Aqua's character is that yes, she's immature and she's impatient, but she's always willing to learn and try new things. Anytime she learns something new about what humans are supposed to do, or when she learns about a new game, she instantly tries to copy that. That's just her thing, that's what she does. But if you want to dig a little deeper, Kris honestly shares traits with all the flowers, which, you know, makes sense since this is another Kris Dark World. I should sit up. Yellow has a very back and forth sense of justice, and they're constantly plagued by guilt. This is mirrored in Kris, where Kris will help their friends and then go against their friends. Like we've already covered, Kris seems to be plagued by guilt over some traumatic event in the past. Kris also mirrors Blue's dishonesty. Kris is constantly lying to their friends in the same way that Blue is lying to their friends. This one's a little silly, but Green and Kris are both seemingly mute. Yeah. Seth mirrors Kris by being non-binary. In fact, in one of Seth's break times, they directly ask Kris about gender. About their gender. Honestly, yeah, that's cool. Kris is capable of writing with diversity. Theys. And honestly, I think the most interesting one here is Orange. Orange is supposed to be brave, but she's not. She constantly lies and hides herself to make herself look braver and cooler, even though she's really not. Do consider for a second the fact that Orange wanted to fight to protect what she loved, and she failed. Foreshadowing? Question mark? But yeah, no, my money is on Kris being a kind of dual parallel to Frisk and Kara. And to kind of wrap things up, I want to talk about some more miscellaneous topics. Like I said earlier, Kris hates anime, despite being very anime themselves. Like fucking everything they do, these dramatic ass sword slashes, these pretty ass moves, fucking hair flowing in the wind, like you are anime, get over yourself. Kris is a gamer and that makes Birdly very angry. In the past like 4 days that Deltarune has been running for, Kris has eaten 2 things. Kris was only guaranteed to eat 2 things. At the end of chapter 1, they eat the pie, and in chapter 4, they make a chocolate milk.
It's not true. You can go to the diner and you eat moss.
That's optional. Also, the moss is in the Dark World, so it's not real.
Moss is not optional. Moss is mandatory.
In chapter 5, moss is mandatory, but again, that's Dark World, so it doesn't actually, like, Ralsei says, like very plainly, Dark World food does not actually fill you up.
Are you hard of hearing? They just said that moss is mandatory.
Yes, but it's in the Dark World, so it's not real food. I've actually listed...
I don't think Real understands.
Yeah, I don't think Real gets it. I think he's stupid.
Maybe I'm stupid. I've listed literally everything that they eat in the Light World, potentially. So, in order, the only things a child has eaten in 4 days is a pie on night 1, a hot cocoa on day 2, potentially, if you go to the diner, an unhealthy diner meal on day 3, potentially, if you go to the diner, a chocolate milk on day 3, maybe onion balls on day 4 if you interact with normal NPC. So the only mandatory food is the pie and the chocolate milk, which are 2 days apart. Also, there's the ice cream at the festival, but they don't eat the ice cream, it just goes into their weird pocket dimension, where they just whip crack sound and it disappears. I don't know what happened to it. They also like to climb things. There's a lot of like weird comments in chapter 4 about trees being climbable. Kris wants to climb the holiday Christmas tree. There's the little trees around the like foyer of the mansion that Kris says is not climbable. I could have sworn Rudy also mentioned something about Kris climbing the Christmas tree, but I could not find that dialogue for the life of me, so I might be making it up. Additionally, they have 100% been to Dark Worlds without us. In chapter 4, in the kitchen, after they drink chocolate milk, if you get caught by them, and then you come back into the room, they go to play the piano. Now, of the piano songs they can play, there are a few of them that we have not yet seen, which, this is our second interactable section of the show. Don't look at that. So, They can play this song called 7-4, which we have not heard before, and I actually really like it. On my replay of Deltarune before Chapter 5 came out, I went back to the room to hear the piano. This is the song they were playing. I genuinely almost teared up. It's such a pretty track. And I was like, dude, I feel so fucking bad. I'm ruining this kid's life. They can play a piano version of Query from Chapter 3 Dark World. They can play Lancer's theme. They can play It's Pronounced Rules from the Rules card fight. They can play Green Room. Oh, sorry, this is TV World. I like that one. They can play Shop 3, which is Pink's shop theme. They can play a song called Last Prophecy. Which, notably, later in the song, the Castletown motif comes in. I fast-forwarded perfectly, oh my god. And they also play a song just called Prophecy. Which, of course, this one is the song that they play on the grand piano in Dark Sanctuary. Which we've all heard that one before. But of course, notably, the songs 7-4, Shop 3, and Last Prophecy. We have not heard those songs as of Chapter 4. Now, obviously, Shop 3 we've heard as of Chapter 5, but Last Prophecy and 7-4 still have not heard. So, why does Kris know these songs? And why do they know Shop 3 before we even go to Pink's shop? You could be saying, oh, it's an Easter egg, who cares? But no, the Dark World music is diegetic. It's real, and it can be heard in-game by the characters. If you try to play the Sanctuary theme on the piano in Chapter 4, Susie will come and oh, that's a song that Ralsei keeps humming. So it's at the very least implied that, Ralsei can hear it and he hums the music, but maybe Kris can hear it too. I mean, they have to hear it. They play so many of the songs, and they play them perfectly. Oh my god, they're so talented. Why does Kris know these two songs that we have not heard before, and this one song that has not been heard yet on the adventure? Have they been to Dark Worlds without us? I remember earlier how I said that Kris was researching how to use magic before we even came into the picture? Was that related to prior Dark World adventures that we have not seen? Hopefully we get an answer to that soon. I almost said who knows. I'm trying not to say who knows because I realized while editing that I say who knows a lot.
You say that too fucking much.
I do say that a lot. And someone in the comments pointed out that I keep saying who knows and right. So I have a few voices.
Did you know? We can do a little what is it? What did you say counter for every time you say it?
I don't want to do a counter. I'll feel so self-conscious by the end. There's obvious parallels between Kris, Spamton, and Pink, but we talked about those last time. But to briefly retread that ground, Spamton looks at the relationship between Kris and us through the lens of Kris. Spamton is, of course, being puppeted by some higher power, and in the end, it ends up destroying him. Kris is very visibly uneasy after the Spamton-Neo fight. I think Ralsei asks, are you okay? You're prompted yes or no. If you say yes, Kris sounds very unconvincing to Susie. And if you say no, Kris screams no. Probably related to Spamton a bit too much there and was not happy. And Pink examines the relationship between Kris and us through a kind of ethical lens. The whole deal is that Maddie just keeps, no, the body has to do what I want. What it wants is stupid. It's my body's what has to listen to me. Pink is just wants to live her life and just be happy, do her own thing, while Maddie wants to do her own thing. And the whole resolution of that fight is that Maddie and Pink come to terms with each other and learn that, it's a compromise. It can't be all about one or the other. They have to work together. Hopefully we can do that with Kris, bro. Listen, if I could tell Kris, like, yo, on Gaster's solo, I was just playing, I swear. They're also compared to a dog a lot. I think this might be referencing them being like an obedient little pawn that always listens, does what it's told, but they also do this like of their own volition. They kind of want to be compared to a dog. They will howl, they will ask for uppies, they will bark, they will scratch at doors. I think it might just be a little like meta reference, like, oh yeah, they do what they're told, they're a pawn. I didn't have like a way to like organically put this in, but there's another connection that I've seen some people make recently with Kris's knife. I mean, it speaks for itself here, but I'll speak for it. We know Kris has their knife, which is explicitly their knife, not just any knife, it is their knife. They carry it with them everywhere. They use it to make fountains, and Aqua mentions, I think twice actually, that Kris has a knife that they don't use and asks why they don't use it. The Knight song is also called Black Knife. That does not mean anything for any Knight theories. Don't say it. In Undertale, the strongest weapon is the real knife with 99 attack, which is also implied to be Kara's knife. So going again with Kris and Kara parallels, is Kris going to use their knife at any point? Now my prediction is that Kris will end up kind of betraying the fun gang and kind of giving fully into the duty side of Duty or Desire, and there will be a Kris fight where Kris will use their knife and fight the fun gang. That is my prediction. I don't think we're ever going to be able to access Kris's knife. I don't think they trust us with that at all. Judging by the fact that this is a knife that is explicitly theirs with a lot of sentimental value behind it that they use to open fountains, that shit could have over 99 attack. That shit could like fucking crash the game. Like, I don't know. That thing's going to be strong. To kind of wrap it up, I want to pay homage to, I don't know if this theory like still is talked about too widely. I think it got a little resurgence with the pink dialogue, but there is an ongoing prediction that Kris will lose a hand by the end of the game. Every single chapter we get imagery relating to Kris losing a hand. The chapter 1 Shadow Crystal says that you can see through your hand. Chapter 2, Queen like mocks you because she's like, oh, I have one thing that you'll never have, detachable hands. Chapter 3, the Find Her room with 1225 points in the gumball machine ends with a hard piece of lacquer falling through Kris's hand and then they couldn't find their hand. In Chapter 4, Susie keeps telling Noelle about like, oh yeah, I remember Blood Crushers, the severed hand from Blood Crushers. One day the protagonist woke up like without a hand and it was attacking them. And in Chapter 5, if you encounter a friend, it will bite Kris's hand and leave a wound that does not go away between save points. There's also some little bits of dialogue that are really weirdly specific with how they talk about Kris's hands, or just hands in general, to the point where like if Kris loses a hand, it'll just be kind of like, Toby Fox foreshadowing. Kris losing their hand might be related to image friend. One, it bites your hand, and two, remember in Chapter 3, in the backstage in the S-Rank room, there's that vending machine that has a smile in it, which is listed as being free, but in actuality costs 1 point. So could Kris have maybe made a deal with Friend and put their hand as collateral? Who knows? Oh fuck, I said it, god damn it. The reason why this theory is significant is because symbolically it'll be them losing an element of physical autonomy. You know, you need your hand to do shit. You get shit done with your hand. They lose their hand, they lose the ability. Kris can no longer goon if they lose their hand. This of course parallels Kris being controlled by us. They lose some of their actual overall autonomy because we are there. We also know that they like playing piano quite a bit, so without a hand they would not be able to do that anymore. In Chapter 4, when you examine the piano after the Dark Sanctuary, right before Second Sanctuary, you can tell Susie that she's like, oh yeah, Kris, I heard you used to play piano. Would you ever do that again? And Kris can say like, oh yeah, I'll play if you play, or like, yeah, we can learn together. But one of the options there is, I will never play piano again. In normal routes, Kris just like doesn't say anything there. They like, I forget what exactly they do, but they manage to avoid saying it. But in Weird Route, if you say, I'll never play again, Kris will start biting the fuck out of their hands to the point where it does actual HP damage to them. So Kris not being able to play the piano anymore is kind of a big deal to them. That is their thing. They really, really like it. Kris losing a hand could also parallel Toby Fox's IRL hand pain. If you didn't know, Toby Fox has developed really bad chronic hand pain in recent years, to the point where like he can't play the piano anymore himself. He can't really program things himself anymore. He can't write things very well. Like, it is a big loss to him as a creative person who likes to do a lot of things. So this could just be a parallel to that. And the biggest smoking gun for this, like the funniest fucking piece of evidence, is that Kris, when typed in wingdings, the I, in capital wingdings by the way, is a hand. And Kris is abbreviated in-game to KRS. Kris losing their hand would be them losing some of their individuality and autonomy. In other words, you could say they're taking the I out of Kris. Chills or no?
No.
Okay, fuck you. Well, that's pretty much all things Kris. That's Kris top to bottom. Everything Kris. I'm sure I missed some minor detail that's spoken by Toriel if you have 3 things in your inventory at 12 a.m. on a Tuesday. As always, if I miss anything, yell at me in the comments. But just like last time, I want to open the floor to you guys for any final questions here relating to all things Kris.
Like the guy, Mike.
Yeah, I changed it to Mike this time because I realized last time I didn't do that and I felt stupid.
Let's do a Mike video one day. I think that'd be funny. Actually, no, that'd probably mean the friend video, wouldn't it?
I mean, I could put it in the friend video, but there's like nothing to talk about with Mike because Mike like isn't real, and that's like the whole point of him, is that we don't know who Mike is and we have no info on Mike. Yes, was there any last questions, any last comments, anything else we want to talk about regarding Kris Topher Dreemurr?
Yeah, I can't wait until we lose a hand and then I get my proper real vessel back, not that bum.
Oh yeah, I forgot to specifically
Very
mention
love-hate relationship I have with Kris.
Kris losing a hand became like a very, very big, like well-received theory, and people started making like all this cool art of like Kris with like a shadow arm instead, like a darkness arm, or like maybe Kris's arm becomes a darkener or something. And
mixed by your own fucking hand. Imagine your arm getting cut and then your hand comes alive and starts beating your ass like some Evil Dead shit.
Remember, that happened in Blood Crushers, remember? That's what Susie said.
Oh my god.
One day the protagonist wakes up without a hand and like they hear music playing in the basement, and when they go down it starts attacking them and stuff.
The hand playing piano.
Yes, there's a lot of like really, really, really cool fan art of like Kris with like a shadow arm or like a mechanical arm, or just Kris losing a hand in general. Again, it became like a very big like bit of fandom brain rot for a bit. There's also like a really cool animation, I think by EvanTube actually, where it's like, oh, Deltarune Chapter 6, The Roaring. Kris and Susie like fleeing to the shelter, and like they go to jump inside, but something grabs Kris's arm as they're jumping into the shelter, and Susie and like Kris are like dangling there, and Susie's like, oh my god, Kris, what are we gonna do? We need to get in here now! And then Kris is just like, sever. Susie's like, what? Kris like, sever. And like in order to get into the shelter, because whatever's grabbing onto Kris isn't letting go, Susie like bites Kris's arm off, and then they fall down, they do the whole transformation sequence, and then Kris lands with the shadow arm, and it's like, oh my god, that's tough! If there is no questions regarding the Kris, then we can wrap things up here.
Good presentation as always. Friend video soon.
Yes, friend video will be coming up next. Unless Toby Fox drops like more fucking random lore on us on another Tuesday.
No, on a Wednesday.
I'll kill him, bro. My bare hands. Oh yeah, I'm taking the open mic here. I wanted to make like a bit where like, oh, every video I point out like a new bit of Deltarune fan content, because last time we talked about Togor time, I was like, oh, this time I want to talk about something else. There is a really cool Deltarune, like, I guess unfiction series you'd call it. It presents itself as like, oh yeah, Deltarune unused content, hidden content, lost cut content. But then the longer you watch
read this called Deltarune fanfiction.
Then the longer you watch the series, you realize that it's not actually real cut content. And it starts to tell a story about like Kris being completely isolated and left behind by like Toriel and all that jazz. It is the Ashvale...
Oh no, I think I may have seen this.
Have you seen it actually?
Yeah, I think I may have seen it. It's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's the Ashvale Lane series.
I've seen this.
Yeah, it's really cool. I watched it like all in a single sitting one night. It was so cool. It's very Omori coded too. There are a few things, a few issues I have with the series, but overall it is a fantastic watch. I recommend to everyone.
You know, I saw that the fucking, was it Roaring Town? That shit was fucking...
Yeah! Yeah, Roaring Town's part of it. But yes, everyone should watch the Ashvale Lane series. It's really good. They're actually starting a new series soon. I'm going to wait till a few more videos get posted before I tap into that one. What I love about the Ashvale Lane series is that the writing feels so, like, Toby accurate. Like, it deadass feels like actual scrapped content. Like, it's so Toby core. I love it. But yes, that will be all for today, and we will see you guys next time for the friend video. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for coming. And with that, goodbye, 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 goodbye.